I'm Frank Garza, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. The USMNT needed penalties, but they were able to get past Costa Rica in the Gold Cup quarterfinals. On today's show, we'll do a full breakdown of the match, as well as look ahead to their semifinal matchup against Guatemala on Wednesday evening. To help me do that, I've invited Chuck Booth to join the show. Chuck is a soccer writer at CBS Sports. So, Chuck, this match against Costa Rica finished 2-2 at the end of regulation. U.S. goal scorers were Diego Luna, Max Arfsten. We go to penalties. We win the shootout 4-3. Let's start big picture first. I mean, what did you think of this match overall?
Oh man, it was a game of soccer. I expected Costa Rica to push a little bit. I don't think anyone expected a draw and then it to actually go to a penalty shootout, especially with Ugalde not playing at striker for them. And that's kind of where the majority of my concerns set in. Is like, this wasn't a full strength Costa Rica team, and the U.S. defense, and specifically Max Arfsten, struggled big time. And like, it is great that they won, but not enough players took the opportunity that they had to make their claim to actually being in the World Cup squad.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed this was going to be a 2-2. I didn't think there would be 4 goals total in this match. I really thought this was going to be like 1-0, 0-0, go to penalties. I mean, I just thought it was going to be really tough for the U.S. to score, and I thought they'd get their goal, and I thought they could keep Costa Rica from conceding. But so there was a lot more goals in the match than I thought, and yeah, this was just I'm happy they found a way to grind it out, and get the win. In tournaments, a lot of times you have to do that. Sometimes it doesn't always look pretty. And I think this will help them in future matches, having like overcome a team like this, having, gotten through a difficult match like this. That's more than we can say about, versus like Canada and Panama, who were in similar situations but couldn't, get through, and they were two of the other heavyweights, in the tournament. But there were some similar themes, some similar negative themes I saw in this match that we see consistently from the U.S. Bad mistakes that lead to conceding goals. The Arfsten penalty. There was the second goal where the attacker split the two U.S. defenders. I think it was Berhalter and Arfsten on that one. And then unable to close out the match. I mean, I felt when they were up 2-1, I was feeling pretty comfortable watching the match at home, but they couldn't get the third goal to close it out. And lo and behold, they give up the late equalizer and have to go to penalties and take their chances there. So yeah, some recurring themes that unfortunately we keep seeing like over and over again.
Yeah, and I mean, and some of that just when you have a squad that hasn't played much together, like, it is just going to happen, and you hope, but you hope that it gets smoothed out as they spend more time playing together, which at this point, like, they have been together, what is it, like almost a month now? When you take into account the friendlies and now the Gold Cup. So, but you just don't see that gelling happening. And for guys like Max Arfsten, I'm just not sure that an actual back four is the system that he should be playing in.
Yeah, because he plays wing back for Columbus Crew, where he doesn't have to do a whole lot of defending. I mean, he's constantly going forward there, right?
Yeah, and all of his contributions going forward for the USMNT are great. Like, especially without Anthony Robinson there, you need someone on the left that can actually defend, especially when it's not like Tim Ream is the swiftest center back, so he relies on the left back mostly being where they should be so he can anticipate plays.
Yeah, that's the dilemma with Arvston. And you saw it in this. You saw it in this match. I mean, the not so great defensive ability, and he gives up a penalty that leads to their first goal. But then he comes back and he gets what he got. Was it an assist and a goal?
Yep.
I believe so. It does give you something going in the attack. Let's talk about the starting lineup. I want to get into a few of these decisions Pochettino had to make, and kind of break down those decisions and how we think he did. The first one is the starting lineup. He elected to go with Arvston, Ream, Richards, and Freeman on the back line. Went with three midfielders: De La Torre, Adams, and Berhalter, and then Luna, Tillman, and Ajiman, up top. What'd you think of the starting lineup that he put together? Did he get it right? Were there any surprises for you? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I didn't really have any issues with the starting lineup because I think like his biggest decision probably came down to being Arson versus John Tolkien, and neither player has necessarily like done well enough to just be like, okay, they definitely should have started in front of the other one. And I know it probably didn't feel like Sebastian Berhalter should have started, but when you're taking into account the set piece delivery that he does offer this team, and how that game was probably at least supposed to play out in really taking advantage of set plays against Costa Rica, I get why tactically he would have been the midfielder that you want there.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a couple things when the lineup card came out, there was really four positions I was looking at. The Arvston Tolkien decision at left back, like you said there. I thought it would be Arvston, so nothing too much surprised me there. Then I was going to see who's the holding midfielder he put next to Adams. I thought it would be Berhalter. He ended up not really doing that and going with two midfielders, both De La Torre and Berhalter. And then I was thinking, who's he going to play at right wing? He ended up, was McGlynn, Quinn Sullivan, Brennan Aronson, but because he played with the three midfielders and kind of had Berhalter playing on the right side and Freeman kind of going more forward, that didn't really come into play at all. And then some folks thought he might put Matt Turner back in at goal. I didn't think he would. He didn't. He ended up going with Matt Freese there. But those were the key decisions. And the one that I guess ended up being the most weird to me was this decision to go with both De La Torre and Berhalter. I didn't really see that one coming. I really thought McGlynn would be back out there. How do you think it worked with both De La Torre and Berhalter out there?
It like it was mostly okay and that's where this is still just like such a weird game because even if you go on the numbers and basically, if Malik Tillman makes this penalty, the US wins this in regulation and it's not this weird nail biter game. But like at least when it came to taking over possession, it was mostly fine, but there were still like moments where it still felt like the midfield was trying to do too much and just led to easy turnovers that Costa Rica was capitalizing on. But like also, I don't know if that was the kind of game that you necessarily want Jack McLean starting, just because he's still not that type of physical player that excels in these kind of scenarios. And it really does seem like Luca De La Torre is just getting a pretty long run in general, so that Pochettino can make a decision on has he actually passed Yunus Musa, and it feels like the answer is yes.
Yeah, he does seem to be. De La Torre has started, I believe, every match. Seems to have a lot of confidence in him, and I do like Berhalter a lot. I think if you were just going to put one of them in there, I think it would be a really hard decision for Poch. I think De La Torre to me gives you a little bit more polish going forward on the attacking side. I feel like he can find those kind of nooks and crannies with the tight passes. Berhalter, I think, gives you a little bit more bite. and he looks like he wants to just fight somebody when he's out there. I mean, I think Greg or somebody probably took him aside. I was like, look, if you do one thing, show that you want to kick ass and you won't back down from anybody, out there.
And that is something
there's the set pieces.
and that is something that we need more of out there.
Yeah.
It was basically him, Diego Luna, then Chris Richards really offering the most of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not completely sold on having all three of them, out there yet, but that was really, when I took a look at the starting lineup, that was really the only thing that really caught my eye, is maybe a little bit surprising. And we'll talk later when we start to preview the upcoming match against Guatemala, how we think he should set up the lineup, for that one.
Yeah, and the good news is, in a normal USMNT window, you never have to see all three of them out there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let's talk about the penalties. So another decision he had to make that I thought was really interesting was the penalty takers. I wish I would have done was when they went to commercial break, I wish I would have jotted down the 5 people that I thought, he'd send out there. Because I ended up being kind of surprised by it and by the order of it. But when I actually looked at the people that were out there, maybe I'm not surprised so much, but let's talk about that. Sends Tyler Adams out there first, who made his penalty. Malik Tillman second, made his. Sebastian Berhalter goes third. He had the really bad miss. He skied it over the goal, missed pretty bad. Alex Freeman went next, made his. John Tolkien, who was the 5th goalkeeper. Yeah. He had the chance to win the match with his kick. His got saved by Keylor Navas, and then Damian Downs ends up going 6th, makes his to win the match. The players who could have taken a penalty who did not were Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Brian White, Jack McGlynn, and Matt Freese. I mean, what'd you think about the penalty takers he sent out there and how all that went down?
I thought everything was mostly fine until you got to why was John Tolkien the 5th taker? Mm-hmm. Especially when it seemed like Brian White was getting subbed on specifically to take penalties. And I get that if it's like, okay, Brian White didn't come in until the 90th minute because he was waiting forever to actually come into the game, because I think it was the 85th or so when he was trying to check in, and then the ball just never went out of play. But at that point, if you're bringing him in specifically to take a penalty and he's still not in those first 6 takers, it's pretty weird to me. And then based on his finish to actually win the game, it seems like it would have been a really easy decision to put Damian Downs 5th.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was surprising that Brian White didn't get one. Now, I personally am not a fan of putting the player. You see this a lot when a team's about to go into penalties. Those last few minutes, the coach will put in some people specifically to take the penalties. And to me, that's a little nervy for me to think that somebody's going to come into a match, play for a couple minutes, and then they're going to step up in this big moment. But I mean, you see it all the time, and players do it. And you certainly thought that's why he was going in there. But he didn't take one. I was more surprised that Jack McGlynn didn't take one.
Yeah, no,
I just thought with his accuracy, with his technicality, he seems like the type of guy that could put it anywhere he wanted, in the goal. And I was just really shocked. I mean, that he didn't take one. What'd you make of that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree on being surprised that he didn't take one, especially since he's always taken pretty good penalties for club during his career and scored in big moments as well. So
did he take penalties with Philadelphia when he was there?
He has taken penalties with them and shown up in shootouts too. So none of this would be new to him. It would be on the national team level, but realistically, you think he's probably a better choice than Sebastian Berhalter taking a penalty there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he was like the one guy I was like for sure I would have put in the five, and so that surprised me. Who would I have taken out? I don't know. Maybe Tolkien. Maybe Freeman. Freeman made me a little bit nervous, even though he like just buried his. It was beautiful. I mean, he looked so calm. He had no issues, putting
Yeah.
his in there.
The funny thing with
I was a little
Tolkien
surprised
is
that
he,
Tyler
yeah.
Adams went first, actually.
But the funny thing with Tolkien is like he most likely just knowing him as a player talked his way into that shootout, which is like something that you do want to see because like
Yeah.
coaches want a player that's going to be confident in that spot to actually take. But like you would think after this, he's not shooting fifth again.
Yeah. I can see that. And I think he's taken penalties before for Red Bulls. I think I remember him taking some in the playoffs, and making them. But it was surprising. So I wasn't like shocked to see him as one of the five, but to see him fifth really surprised me. I would have put McGlynn in there. Berhalter, I didn't have a problem with him either getting one, but he just went. He tried to go too big. You know what I mean? Like that's the miss that you see more than anything is the guy that sails it, that leans back, and sails it over the crossbar. Like that's you got to put that on frame. I wish he would have kept it, a little bit more simple. But that was exciting to see because we don't get to see the U.S. go to penalties, very often, and it's something that could come up in the World Cup, a year from now. And, somebody like Tyler Adams, who's a player that, I don't know if he'd make the top five, but he might. He's probably going to be one of the players that goes the full 90 minutes, and is out there. So I think I heard on the broadcast last night, this was his first ever penalty kick he had taken. So to give him that experience was kind of cool. Okay, let's look ahead to this semifinal matchup against Guatemala. That will be on Wednesday evening. Guatemala got here by beating Jamaica 1-0. They lost to Panama 1-0 and then beat Guadeloupe 3-2. That got them through the group stage to the quarterfinals where they beat Canada. Big upset against Canada in penalties after that match ended 1-1 in regulation. You look at how these two teams compare to each other in their rankings. If you look at the FIFA rankings, US 16, Guatemala 106. ELO ratings is a little bit closer. US is 41, Guatemala 75. But this seems like a match that the US should be like heavily favored to win. I mean, what are you going to be watching for in this matchup when it gets underway?
Oh, I mean, you right there. It's like the U.S. should in theory, control this match. If Canada doesn't get a red card, that probably is a cakewalk for them. And this isn't anything where you want to put down what Guatemala's done, because like no matter what, they're assured their best finish in the Gold Cup since I think like 1996. And they are a CONCACAF nation that's improving and that can also score some goals on the USMNT because Rubio Rubin has been very good for them. But you would hope that the USMNT scores 3 goals in this game.
Yeah. What I'd like to see is just a very business-like performance from the U.S., where they go out there and do exactly what they should do, get a goal early, get a second one at some point to put the game away, and then kind of coast. Now, I'm not saying it's going to go like that, but that's what would make me happy is for it to be just a very business-like, take care of business, make it simple, get through. I'd feel like very, very confident, about that. What about the starting 11? So we talked about the starting 11 that Potch sent out there against Costa Rica. What changes, if any, would you like to see for this match against Guatemala?
Yeah, I don't think you change much really. Like I think you can still definitely make an argument for putting Tolkien in at left back. I don't know if that's actually going to happen because it is hard to bench Arson after a goal and an assist even with his mistakes. And he's a guy who also has just been getting a pretty long leash under Pochettino. So like there's clearly something that he likes there. But I do think that in this match you probably swap out Berhalter for McGlynn.
Yeah. You touched on the two that I'm interested in as well, and I think I'd like to see some changes. I would like to see Tolkien get a start over Arvston. I think that's a real 50-50 battle right here, and I know Arvston gives you a lot going forward, but I just don't trust him defensively, especially if we do make it to the final and we play Mexico. I just don't know if I trust him, and I think Tolkien gives you more defensively. And so I'd like to see him get this game against Guatemala to show what he can do, to show what he can do in the attack as well as, defensively, and then use that data to make a final decision going into the Mexico match. I'm just not completely sold on Arvston. I don't think you have much to lose by putting Tolkien out there against Guatemala. So I'd like to at least see that, as a data point. And then I'm with you. I'd like to see something different on that right-hand side. Whether it's McGlynn, I've even thought putting Brennan Aronson in there could be interesting because he hasn't had a full run at it yet, and he could do some things there. But then that leaves you with the decision of who you gonna take out, Berhalter or De La Torre. I mean, and I think that's going to be a real tight decision. Maybe Berhalter makes it in because of how good he is with set pieces. Maybe it depends on if you do play Jack McGlynn, and then you feel like you can give him the set pieces and leave De La Torre in there. But I think those are the decisions that are going to be really interesting to see when the lineup card comes out.
Yeah, I agree with you that I would like to see Tolkien. I'm just not sure if we do or not.
Yeah, a fair point. I mean, Arvston seems to be one of Potch's guys. And like you said, he's given him a long leash. He's done some good things, right? He scored the goal, had an assist. And you're going to need that attacking prowess against Guatemala. So Tolkien's what I'd like to see. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably. If I had to bet, I'd probably say Arvston will roll back out there. But
yeah,
I'd enjoy seeing Tolkien.
Definitely, that's always what's getting interesting now that you're starting to see some of Pochettino's tendencies, and it is just like, well, yeah, I mean, it would be great to see that person, but I don't know if we will because they've only played basically 45 minutes under him.
Yeah, well, I think Tolkien, he got didn't he start against Haiti? I think he got one start, I believe.
Yeah, it's just that
he looked
Haiti,
rusty. He looked rusty.
And also that Haiti lineup was just very clearly making sure that everyone was healthy for this game. One thing that is interesting is that you didn't mention wanting to see Brian White in that game.
Me?
Yeah.
Wanted to see Brian White in the next game?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, he hasn't looked good. I mean, there was a time I kind of would have liked to see him get a start, maybe against Haiti, when they were kind of rotating a few players. At this point, I don't think I would want to experiment with Brian White. I just haven't seen enough from him. What do you think? Would you like to see him out there?
No. The thing is just, it seems like Patrick Agyemang is getting a bit too much unfair criticism.
Yeah.
Based on just, some of his shots just not going in. But it's clear that he's also just causing chaos to defenses with the way that he plays striker. And I don't know if like Malik Tillman and Diego Luna have the tournaments that they're having if there's another person starting at striker.
Yeah. Wait, say that again. You don't know if they're having the tournaments they're having. Why do you say that?
Just because of how much space that he's able to provide them with.
Yeah, yes, you're right. I mean, he is an important cog in the wheel. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like to see him with some better finishing, and I'd like to see him bury some of the opportunities he gets. But he seems to be an important piece of the attack, with his hold up play and with I seem to remember him having some really good one touch passes to like Tillman, which led to a good shot. So yeah, I think it's been unfair criticism. I think I've been happy with him. Would I like to see more? Of course, but I'm not too worried about Patrick Agumon causing us to lose a game,
Yeah,
or not win a game.
and also it's like none of the concerns right now like really come down to the attack.
That's true. We're getting plenty of opportunities. I mean, maybe we haven't seen much of Damian Downs because he's been, I think he was sick. He's had some
Yeah,
injuries. I mean, so maybe I wouldn't mind seeing him. Maybe you roll him out against Guatemala, just to kind of see and give you that data point to make a decision. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think
yeah,
Potts.
I feel like best case scenario you see like 30 minutes of downs against Guatemala, which like if you're thinking about a player the way that he's been playing, rolling on against tired legs after they've been defending for the entire game, like that should honestly be a perfect way to put this game out of sight.
Yeah, that would be nice. I would like to see him get more minutes because I just really don't know what he's about. I mean, the most I've seen from him is that penalty that he took last night, and that's a lot on your shoulders when you have to make the game winning like penalty kick, and he did it. So would like to see more of him. Just don't know if that's gonna come. Well, Chuck, let's call it a show. I'll make sure and put links in the show notes to your X account, which is at Chuck Booth Sport, and also to your work at CBS Sports. Thanks again for coming on the show today.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
And thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or that follow button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else. Thank you so much. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X at Frank Garza 007, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.